Hey everybody, it's Brian. Before I did this Seahawks stuff full time, I worked as a manager and senior leader. So I know how lonely it can be to try to find someone you trust to talk through people issues, org issues, process issues as you try to lead an organization. Ryan Cleveland of RyanCleveland.com is someone I trust to have those conversations with. He specializes in working with CEOs and business owners, and you can get a complimentary free discovery session to see if it's a good fit for you. Just go to RyanCleveland.com to sign up and start now. Hello, welcome to another edition of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. And with all apologies to our coach, Mike Holmgren, our former coach, I had to show up as him this evening. Happy Halloween, a day early to everybody. Folks, this is the point we're at in the season where we are dressing like former coaches and celebrating former moments. And with that, I will bring in Evan Hill and Jeff Simmons at Evan Hill HB at Real Jeff Simmons. Boys, how you doing?
You did not tell us you were going to do that.
No, of course not. Why would I tell you that?
I didn't see it coming.
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I'm nervous about this Rams game. I'm nervous about a lot of things in life. But, yeah, happy Halloween, folks. Are you guys doing anything fun for Halloween?
Jeff, what about you? Did you do anything fun? I'm not like a big Halloween guy, despite the costume.
No, not really. Like, my whole street is decorated and I'm not doing much. So
now I
feel like I'm in like the weird middle ground where like I don't have kids yet, and like my whole friend group has kids, and like
the best Halloween experiences I had was walking around with my kids and our friend group and their kids, and we had nothing but juice in our cups that we were walking around with. I promise. It was absolutely just non-alcoholic stuff, but those were fun times. So it's actually pretty fun when you get the kids involved.
Now I have a dumb question. I need you guys to educate me. So I know both of you are Jewish. I don't know if our audience knows that. Does Jewish culture like celebrate Halloween? Because I know like some Christian culture doesn't for whatever reason. Is there like a conflict there or not at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, like I live in a primarily Jewish area in Toronto, and like the whole area is nonstop Halloween. The one thing about our religion is like the one thing we care about is food.
Yeah.
And so literally like that's literally like it's I can tell you a million stories, but like so a day to eat candy and like celebrate, like we're all over that.
Yeah.
Well said. What is your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh my God. My favorite. Oh my gosh. Jeff, how about you start us off?
I really like the Reese's Cups. I know you probably can't touch those.
I know.
I think those are awesome. I'm a big Twix guy. I know you think it's super overrated. I'm big on Twix. I know.
Caramel candy, caramel chocolate candy. It's like a little. I'm not saying Twix is bad. Twix is good.
I'm big Twix.
Twix is like number one. Twix is like objectively good. Totally will give it that. But people consistently rank it like a top 2-3 candy. And like, I'm not sure it's that.
Well, so what is your top 2 or 3?
I think.
By the way, people that are tuning in later that are not watching this live and they're like, how do I just get to the Seahawks talk? I'm going to raise my hands like this, like a touchdown signal. When we're done with this, you can just fast forward so you see that signal. But we're going to talk about some other things for a few minutes.
I think Milk Duds have to be there. They have to be.
Milk Duds?
Too chewy.
Milk
Too chewy.
Way
Too
too
chewy.
chewy.
Yeah, too chewy.
Sorry that you have to chew like good candy to like eat it.
All right, continue with your terrible takes. So Milk Duds, fine. What's your next bad take?
I think Tootsie Rolls are amazing.
Those are like two of the worst, I think.
Jesus.
And then special mention, Starburst jelly beans.
Okay, those are good. I mean, I don't know if they're top 2.
No, but they're super underrated. I have real nostalgia with Starburst jelly beans. Like as a kid, like running for those Easter eggs and getting so lucky if there was like a Starburst jelly bean in there. Guess what? My local grocery store, Kroger. If you live near a Kroger, anything that's owned by Kroger, aisle 22, halfway down at the bottom, bag of Starburst jelly beans. I make this trip once a week. It is critical. It is so good. Starburst jelly beans, elite.
All right, Jeff, save us. That was an awful take. Other than the jelly beans that are fine, the Starburst jelly beans. What are your go-to Halloween? If you see a pile of Halloween candy, what are you looking for?
For me, it's Reese's Cups, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I know that might kill Evan. We talked about Twix before you got on. I love Twix. Do you guys have Sour Patch Kids in the States?
Yeah.
It's like Josh was making fun of me once because I don't know if you guys have weird candy in Canada. So we actually have pretty normal. People actually come to Canada for like some unique snacks that we have that are pretty good. So I'm big on like gummies, but I've never really like crazy about like the Starbursts. They're too chewy. But the jelly beans I liked, but usually it's chocolate for me. Like I like Kit Kat a lot too. I think Kit Kat's
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Kit Kats are really good.
Yeah. I mean, those are the standards. Like Twix, Reese's. I think Kit Kat's up there. I think underrated. Now, this is not top, but this is underrated. This is one that a lot of people just throw away that I think is pretty good, and that is Milky Way. Milky Way with the caramel, chocolate, the nougat, whatever you call it. That's pretty solid. So I think Milky Ways are like a little bit of a hidden treasure.
Now hold up. You guys are doing a bunch of positive things. You're all in this like safe zone where you're not going to get roasted for something you like. What is your most overrated Halloween candy? Most overrated.
Most overrated. I'm not a big licorice guy, like Twizzlers, Red Vines, that kind of thing. Not a big fan. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, like, my most roastable take probably is I think candy corn's good.
That's a take. That is
I will absolutely grab, like, there's a bowl. I'll grab a handful of candy corn. Be happy about it.
Now, hold up. Because, like, the way I've always described candy corn is, like, it's good for, like, the first handful, but every, like, following up handful is, like, diminishing returns.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, like,
I will also say this. I think M&Ms are overrated.
What about M&M peanuts?
They're all right.
Really?
I mean, for me, like M&Ms have been relegated to one place and one place only, and that's when you pour them over hot popcorn at the movies. Then they're awesome.
Yeah, that's fair.
That sounds good.
I got to change gears. We're going to talk about football, I promise. But I asked Coach McDonald, and then I continued to ask all the players I could find in the locker room what your favorite Halloween costume was that you've worn in your life, and what's a movie, like your favorite scary movie. So I got to ask you guys, and then I want to play for you. This is up there for patrons. Patrons can already listen to the full locker room exclusive. I'm going to play a little bit of this for you guys and for other people listening as well. So tell me your costume that you remember. It doesn't have to be your favorite, but just one that comes to mind, and your favorite scary movie. Jeff?
I'll say like a side of me most people probably haven't seen before. I once went to a Halloween party when I was in college as a breathalyzer.
That's amazing.
There's a hilarious picture of me on like Facebook, if anyone still uses that, of like me, and then there's like kind of like a blowhole at the bottom, and it is a ridiculous costume. I got a lot of good attention at that party, so that was one of the funniest ones I've ever been, for sure. Scary movie, like I'm not really into scary movies. I'm kind of out on them. It's one of my hottest takes. So let me think about that.
Okay, Evan, how about you?
Ooh, favorite costume. I have not been like super creative over the years, but I'll tell you what I'm doing this year. I'm going back to an OG costume that I have, which is, if any of you have ever seen Reno 911, I have
you wear that every year, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's Officer Tipsy. He comes out. I cut off the sleeves. It's like 4-inch inseam. it's super inappropriate, obviously. But that's the goal. So I brought that back this year. And then in terms of favorite horror movie, I love like the supernatural kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you've ever heard of As Above, So Below, this is a movie that will genuinely terrify you. It is about the Paris catacombs, the ancient Roman cemetery that has lived under Paris for like centuries and centuries and centuries. This is like a real thing. I was in the catacombs like a year ago, and it used to be, now it's like very cordoned off and like, you really can't like get into it, but it's literally like thousands of miles of tunnels underground, which is a burial site. And it's literally like bones lining the walls of real people. And it's ancient cemeteries going back hundreds and maybe even thousands of years. I don't know, because I know it goes back to Roman times. But the movie is about a group of explorers that sneak into a secret entrance into the catacombs. And there's even secret entrances still that exist today. They're super hard to find, but I think it's even illegal to go through them. But they venture into it, and bad stuff happens. So if you like supernatural stuff and that sort of arena, I think you'd really enjoy it. It will scare the crap out of you, though. So
I think for me, I can go a lot of different ways. I'm not a huge horror movie guy, generally like slasher movie, but I loved Evil Dead 2. That was both hilarious, and it belongs in the horror genre, even though it was hilarious. One of my favorites. And then I think Final Destination is like a really fun series. I found those so entertaining. Evan, are you frozen? Oh, there you are.
I have never seen
it.
Yeah.
In fact, it came up today. I won't play that sound, but Mike Jarrell said, I think it was Mike Jarrell. No, maybe not. Maybe it was. Yeah. One of the guys said that Final Destination was their scariest movie and that they still don't ride roller coasters to this day because of it. So maybe it was Laken Tomlinson. But I want to play you guys Ernest Jones, his answer to this question in the locker room. So hopefully you guys can hear this okay. Ernest, hey, Brian, man.
Ernest,
quick question. Favorite costume you can remember wearing for Halloween and favorite scary movie?
Favorite costume, I was Steve Urkel one Halloween. So that would probably be my favorite scary movie. Probably like The Conjuring.
The Conjuring? Yeah. Nice, good pull. Thank you, man, appreciate it. T-Dot.
What's up, bro?
Good to see you again. Favorite costume you can remember wearing and favorite scary movie?
Favorite scary movie is Scary Movie.
Yeah, there you go.
And then astronaut costume. The astronaut.
Nice, love it.
Yeah.
There's a bunch more. It actually gets pretty funny. Jason Peters is hilarious in this. He goes on and on harassing people about it, but it was fun. I asked Coach McDonald about this today. He admitted that he wore a Bill Belichick costume, and he thought Bill Belichick might appreciate that, other than maybe he wouldn't because they're playing such bad defense right now.
So that was good. So I got an answer for my favorite scary movie. Actually, this is my least favorite scary movie. The Seahawks run defense.
Oh, I knew you were going to. Yeah, okay. Okay, buddy. Okay.
Sorry.
You had to do it. Wah, wah, wah. All right. Well,
I could have said the offensive line.
You have your pick. So I'm making the signal. We are moving to football topics, and I got to start with this, guys. I snapped last night. Like, I was writing my tail of the tape, and I've been, I'm always like, okay, next game, let's see what they can improve. And I just snapped. I was like, I'm so done. Like, I'm done with every single week being like, well, if they can stop the run, they have a chance. If their offensive line is not total shit, they have a chance. Like, what purpose do we serve at this point? Like, there's no variation. And one of the things we all asked for, like we were all looking forward to, Josh Cashman even said he got chills when I said this at the preseason, was I'm just looking forward to losing in different ways. And here we are, 8 games into this season, we're losing the exact same bleeping way. And I've managed to kind of like equalize my mood since then. But if you read my tale of the tape on hawkblogger.com, it is surly. I'm just like, whatever. They're going to lose because they can't stop the run. How are you guys doing? Where are you guys at on that spectrum? Evan?
I am very, I don't know if this was exactly your question, but this is where my mind is at. I initially, heading into the Bills game, I was very optimistic about their upcoming 6-game sort of road trip of like a couple of divisional opponents, some, really quality opponents and Super Bowl contenders like the Bills. I have gone from very optimistic to like, oh crap, they might lose the majority of these games. The Rams, let's talk about the Rams for a second, or at least that's where my head's at.
Yeah.
They have the momentum. The Rams just beat the Vikings. I don't care about the end of the game, the missed call, whatever. Sure. It was bad, horrible. They beat the Vikings. Okay, they're on a 2-game winning streak. They're finally starting to get healthy. Matthew Stafford had the best game of his season last week. He threw for 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Puka is back. Cooper Kupp is back. Their 2 rookies at left guard and center didn't give up a single pressure all game. For some reason, their undrafted left guard and their 6th-round rookie center both look like really quality players, and they seem to have all the momentum. Like they're starting to click. They're starting to get healthy. Their offensive line did not give up much pressure last week, and I'm worried that Seattle might get their butts kicked in this football game. They have a very effective run game. Kyron Williams, I forget his name. They're starting running back. He went for like 5.5 yards per carry against the Vikings. He ran for like 100 yards himself. So, I mean, you talk about the run defense, talk about Sean McVay and his offensive wizardry. This makes me very nervous. Like I'm getting increasingly anxious about this game. Just even talking about it right now makes me anxious. So I'm really worried about this game. I think he has our number. We have a new head coach, obviously, but I'm not optimistic. And Jeff, you can tell me if I'm wrong.
No. There's a scene in the movie Waterboy where like the water boy is visiting his mom and Rob Schneider's like at the window and says, "Oh no, we suck again." Have you seen that meme? That was kind of me after the game on Sunday. And I'll say this. I have a fantasy football league. I might have picked up Matthew Stafford to play quarterback this week. So I'll be honest. I'm at the point now where it's like I'm not too focused on whether they win this game or not. I want to see confidence, and I want to see them start to build off something, because what we saw last Sunday was there were patterns from the last 4 or 5 games where their run defense is so perplexing and they're getting out-gapped and they're not even able to do like basic fundamentals. I'm at the point where I just want to see that. I want to see fundamentally sound football. So Sean McVay with 10 days to prepare against the Seahawks issues right now, which I heard Nathan on the show last week, and I thought when coming off that Atlanta game, everyone was pretty high, and Nathan's like, well, I'm still terrified with what I'm seeing. I'm kind of stuck in the back of my head. I'm like, there's a lot of stuff. Maybe he's onto something. And then the game happens, and it's the kind of game that makes you reevaluate everything. We talked about it on Sunday, but again, like the more everyone's dug into the film and actually watched what's happened, it's been like super perplexing of just like how much they're just misaligned and like the basics of 2 offensive linemen trying to block one person and leaving big plays. Like both sides of the ball, they're so fundamentally unsound right now. I'm just hoping they get functional. And that's crazy for a team that just beat Atlanta by 20 points. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. And it's kind of sad that we're gone to that point.
Let me say something, though. I've seen this start to crop up on Twitter and even in our Slack channel for Patreon members at patreon.com/hawkblogger. You're like, they post something from Maddie or Griff or someone like, obviously fan of Griff, have him on the show. Maddie and Griff do a good job on Seattle Overload. They certainly know more about X's and O's than I probably ever will. But I think people got to be really careful about thinking that anybody Brian Baldinger, like anybody is going to put film up there and they're going to demonstrate that Mike McDonald doesn't know what he's doing or that the players don't know what they're doing. I think that is, if I'm given two choices, one, that Mike McDonald doesn't know how to coach defensive football, that these players, that this defensive line is actually the 32nd worst. It's the worst in the NFL. The linebackers are the worst. The corners and the safeties, that they're all the worst at run defense ever, like in the NFL. Or that there's problems that they're working through and that they will solve them, that they understand what's going on. I think it's the latter. Like I was going to ask Mike McDonald a little bit about this today, and I tried to find the right words, but they're not going to share much. But I'd be really careful of just assuming that anyone outside that locker room is able to point out and say, okay, this is terrible. They don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't think that's what's going on.
Listen, I'm not saying Mike McDonald became idiot overnight or that he doesn't know what he's doing, but there was stuff you could see where they're just misaligned, where the play looks dead even before it begins. And I thought Nathan put out some really good clips on that, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. It was something I was hoping, like, I think with Salk and Brock, I think that was the right show where you could kind of have that conversation of like, why does this look so different than how everyone else
They're too scared of him, dude.
They're never going to ask that question. But that was what I was hoping. Like I told you, I watch probably 30 other teams. I don't say I watch Carolina very much, but no one's just getting gashed like regularly like they are. So I'm not saying,
not minimizing how bad it is.
It's
for
just
sure.
More. It looks like plays are just dead before they even start.
Well, that's the part where I'm just like, I have a harder time getting to that. I see the same tweets you do. I don't know if they're misaligned and we're sure that that's the wrong thing, or if somebody's doing the wrong thing post. Like, I'm going to stop there and just say the results are trash. They're not getting better. They're the worst in the NFL right now and doing this. That's what I can say with certainty. Beyond that, I think other people are making a lot of guesses that I have a harder time just going along with.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm just saying they haven't had answers for their problems yet.
Right.
And listen, I'm the first one who's been talking about this for years. I talked about this Sunday. I talked about it on my show with Rob on Monday. I see a lot of issues in how the team is built, and we're kind of seeing that on the field. But I just want to see more stable run defense. I don't expect the offensive line to become great, but I want to see competent run defense.
Well, that's the thing, Evan, is like, that's why I was trying to paint the extreme. The Seahawks are not just not doing well in run defense. They are the worst in the NFL since like Detroit, like since week 4. They are the worst in the NFL at defending the run in a bunch of different metrics. And it's just been getting worse, not been getting better, really. And I don't think that the defensive line is one of the bottom 10. And even though there's linebacker issues, I don't think the linebackers are bottom 5. I don't think the safeties or corners are bottom 5 in run defense. And I don't think the coaching staff is bottom 5. So the thing to me is like, why aren't they just mediocre? Like, it's one thing that like they're not good, but to be the worst in football at this, you kind of have to work to be the worst in football at almost anything. And so that's the part I'm like, can we just like not be the worst at this? Like, is that the level we are right now, that we're asking to just not be the worst at things?
Yeah, it's pretty perplexing. I'd be curious to know like how much blame you guys put at the feet of Byron Murphy on this. Like he's a rookie, right? First round player though. This is a guy that dominated, defending the run in college football. The Huskies literally almost lost the playoff game, right? Because of Byron Murphy alone, right? He was completely terrorizing that Husky offensive line, making Penix run for his life. Couldn't run the ball at all. And I think through 8 games, Byron Murphy is just an example of one of those guys who has not consistently plugged holes on a week basis. I don't know what to say. Like this, we don't have consistency at this part of the defense for whatever reason, or we're pretty consistently bad actually. So maybe we do have consistency, but I just don't think guys are executing. And there's been a lot of talk about execution over the past, couple of weeks. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Jeff, you look like you were ready to jump in.
Oh, I thought Murphy did not have a good game on Sunday. I think the Bills exposed him, and I think everyone who's watched the game again, God bless the people who have, because I am not. God damn. They've all come to the conclusion that Byron was pretty awful, but I think he's been pretty solid the whole year, and I think he's been. If we're gonna point to problems, I don't know if I would start with him. I think he's been pretty impressive in some of the stuff he's done, especially the Atlanta game. A lot of the issues, but that was more disrupting other plays. And I don't know if it's run defense, but there's just so many players where that's what's so perplexing to me. I don't know if it's players, if it's coaches, are they being asked to do something they can't do? Are they not executing it right? I don't know. But all I can say is with the talent they have, and I don't think they're like super elite, there's no reason for them to be this bad. It's inexcusable for them to be this bad. And that could be on the players, that could be on the coaches. The talent and the investment they've had, and I've criticized their build, but their defensive line and defensive tackle group is pretty good on paper. They should be a functional run defense.
I agree. Let's play a sad game for a second, because everyone loves a sad game. Let's say it doesn't get better, or like it just gets marginally better. What do you do? What's your answer? Who stays? Who goes? Like, are you full on like? Should the Seahawks be thinking about selling at the deadline right now? Should they be trying to trade players and getting where are you guys in that spectrum of stick with it to blow it the hell up?
I'll just say this. You've got a lot of decent talent, particularly defensively, being paid like they're very, very good talent. And if they're not executing at like even above average sort of levels, are you going to pay Draymond Jones $30 million next year? Are you going to pay Leonard Williams, who just signed a big extension, some huge cap number next year? Like Nuos isn't injured, so I can't really blame him. But like, I think you have to make some. I think it opens up some contract conversations. Jeff, am I wrong?
I have my opinion, but I want to know where you guys are on the spectrum.
Are you saying just roster wise or like big picture?
Overall, I mean, I'm leaving it open.
I think if the year continues like this, you got to look at John Schneider. And we're had two. Go ahead.
Here's the thing, Jeff, and I'm sorry to cut you off. The whole like narrative from ownership and John Schneider going into this offseason was like, this team is ready to compete now, right?
Correct.
That's what they sold this job as. That's like why they made it sound so that's why they made it sound so enticing to come to Seattle, right? So I'm not even convinced that ownership would sign off on like it's time to sell. Maybe we need to actually do like a defensive rebuild here.
Do I agree with you? 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But Brian's question is, what would I do?
Sure.
And that's a different question. What I think will happen, I don't think John Schneider is close to being on the hot seat in the mind of ownership. I don't know if I'm completely off about that. But I think if you come out with two completely different coaching staffs, with all the prospect capital they've had, with all the free agent spending they've done, and you have the exact same problems, I think the guy building the roster has to be. But I went in the comments for a minute, and I see some comments about like guys aren't physical enough and stuff like that. And like, sure, they looked like they were pushed around last game, but like I've seen Byron Murphy toss 300-pound linemen two at once. I saw Derek Hall against Detroit like rip around a guy and sack a guy with one hand. Like, we're getting out of control here. Like, there are issues in run defense, but like all year, Mike, before last game, it's been like the defensive line is not the problem. The problems are at other levels. So this idea that like we're soft and they're not physical, that's just missing the mark. Like last week for sure, 100%. But like we're kind of out of control here.
Yeah, I guess for me it's tough to see what I've seen from Derek Hall, Boye Mafe, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Reek Woolen, Julian Love. Like, there's too many guys where I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to blow any of this up. I still believe, actually, my eyes are that there's talent here and that it just isn't yet executing. The only thing that I have real question about is they might have talent, but do they have the right people? I'll admit that I've gotten into disagreements with certain people in the Seahawks locker room in the LOB era about this topic, but there were guys that were alphas, like true alphas and kind of junkyard dog mentality kind of people. And then there were some really talented players who were very nice guys. And I don't know if I see the former on this team that are just like tearing locker rooms apart. I mean, it doesn't have to be performative, but I'm like people that will absolutely outright refuse to accept this level and will just like by force of will change things. I'm not seeing that on either side of the ball. I see a lot of really nice people, smart people, well-intentioned, talented people. But where's the killer instinct? I don't know. I'm not seeing that as much. Like the closest thing might be like DK. And we've criticized him for some of the stuff he's done, right? But like at least DK will like kind of act out a little bit. But
so that's been my point since Sunday. I tweeted it on Monday. I talked about it. There's two different skills. Skill number one is talent accumulation. And the Seahawks have done a pretty good job. Like you can go through, me and Brian went through all their drafts the last 3 years, who they could have taken. For the most part, it's been pretty good. But there's a second skill, which is team building. And when I said that, some people think it's like Pete Carroll getting in a locker room and building a team up. That's not what I'm referring to. Team building is a skill of where all of your roster moves are interconnected and you have vision and you have a clear idea. And like the Lions are the best example of it, where like there was that pick where Penei Sewell was like the first pick and it's kind of set the tone for that program. And they took Laporta over some of the more athletic tight ends and some of the things. It's all interconnected. And I know Josh was kind of joking about Breno, but like you look at the Seahawks, like who are those blue collar guys? Like Pittsburgh has Cam Hayward and like some of the guys they have, like Keanu Benton, another guy they drafted pretty recently. Like you look at their team, like they have a lot of talented guys. Like Boye Mafe, excellent talent. He's high level speed rusher. He's getting better. Not saying they shouldn't have taken Boye Mafe. That was the best pick of that round, I think. But how many of these guys are like the grinder, like blue collar, like you want to go into a fight with, like, and talk about some of the edges in the trenches on offensive line and their defensive unbalancedness the last couple of years. They're still recovering from spending $30 million dead cap on safeties that aren't on the team. Like, you look at the team building of the Seahawks, it's a collection of talent. It's not a team right now. And I think part of that is like, I hate that 2017 draft because they turned down taking a couple of those guys. But I don't want to revisit that story. But you look at George Kittle every week and the stuff he's doing and like the physical nature of what he does. And like, I know Evan hates him, but there's just a lack of team building with this roster. It's a collection of talent. And that's my problem with what they are.
You know who I feel like the closest thing to a leader that we have like emotionally on this team is, and Brian's never going to let me live this down. Jaron Reed actually gives a crap. Jaron Reed actually gives a crap. We talk about like emotionally like setting the tone and like holding guys accountable. Like you saw it on the sidelines on Sunday, right? You saw him in his face screaming at him saying, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Get it together." You know what I mean? I don't see people aren't going to like this. I don't see Geno Smith rallying his teammates on the sideline. I see Geno Smith throwing a football at people's heads. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, Geno hasn't done it. And Kenneth Walker's a quiet guy. He's not a Marshawn Lynch type. DK Metcalf is, I've asked him about the leadership stuff that he said he wants to do. He's generally not a guy that's going to talk to other people and rally them. It's got to be your best players generally, but even the last Seahawks era, like Josh mentioned Breno Giacomini, you had J.R. Sweezy, you had Tony McDaniel, there was these guys that were not, even back 2005, like Robbie Tobeck was like not the Chris Gray. These were like grinder people that like just showed up every day. I don't know. The team's 4-4. And everything's as bad as can possibly be after that game. That was their worst game for my money. That was the worst game of the year by far. And it was the most hopeless game by far. The season's not over, so I don't want to overstate, but the things that I look at where I say, okay, at least I think this is going to help pull them out of this tailspin. This is going to be something that a stone they can grab onto and pull themselves up from. It's hard after last week. There's not a lot of those examples. Yeah. So let's do patron questions, because I know Evan's going to have to run here. Patreon.com/hawkblogger. You can ask us questions every week, just like these folks are about to. First question comes from Amy Holmes. Thank you, Amy, for being a patron, and I think also a YouTube member. I'll give this one to you, Evan. I'm starting to wonder if the plan to use weekly captains to pump up certain guys hasn't backfired a bit. Having guys who for the long haul feel responsible for this team may have been a better play. Yes, I know it's been up to the players to step up, but having some feeling of authority in the group is not unimportant. That's why captains were chosen by the team, to show the trust and authority placed in them by other players. What are your thoughts?
I'm like mildly sympathetic to that opinion. Like, I understand the angle at which they're coming from, but like, we're not having this conversation if like the Seahawks are able to execute like a barely even functional run defense. Like, it doesn't, like, players have to execute whether they're captains or not. Everybody has to step up. There has to be a next man up mentality. Everybody needs to hold themselves accountable. And there just needs to be like stronger leadership across the board from this team, personnel and coaching wise, regardless of whether or not they have a weekly captain status. Like, I get it, but like, it shouldn't be that important.
Yeah, I get that. I actually had the same thought that Amy did. I almost asked about it today. I do have some questions about whether rotating captains is helping. I certainly, it certainly doesn't seem to be helping. I guess I'll just put it that way. So, yeah, but I hear you too, Evan. Jeff, this is for you from Jason A. Your coach, Mike McDonald, sitting at 4-4, facing down a 3-game stretch against the division that would likely define the rest of your season. Are you trying to find a way to win 2 of those? Are you focused on developing your talent and building for the long term? Playoffs be damned. You have the bye after this Sunday to work with. What do you do?
It's a really good question, because ideally he's trying to build something sustainable long term rather than chase a year where they don't look particularly good. But I think your job as a head coach, and why a lot of people, is to fix the problems that are going on in the field. And I think Mike Lombardi, who I listen to every week, he calls the job of head coach like a chief fixer-upper. And there's clear problems that seem potentially fixable. I don't know if their offensive line is fixable, but my goal is whatever I can do to simplify things for these players and put these players in position where they can play good run defense and get to teams in 3rd and longs. Because that's where the Seahawks have actually been really good on defense, and that's where McDonald can be best. So I'm really focusing on just establishing a foundation, starting with run defense, so you can build out the rest of your defense, finding out who the players are. And I think in the process, you're going to find out who are the players I want to go forward with. I think that's kind of interrelated, because I don't think you can just be like trying to build the same foundation and making the same mistakes over and over until they get that right. I think you got to do something to fix the problem. I don't know if that's simplifying the scheme. I don't know if that's asking them to do something different. I don't agree with this idea that before last game they haven't been physical. I think last game was the only real example of that. And I think you got to just figure out, how do I solve these problems? Again, I don't know if offensive line is fixable. I think it's just purely a trash talent issue at guard.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get Abe Lucas back, so you got to hope that takes a step forward. But really, it's focusing my efforts on what I can do to be more efficient defensively and get into third down more regularly.
For what it's worth, Mike McDonald today continued to kind of voice the opinion that they're just going to keep at it and it's going to happen when it happens. It's a puzzle that'll come together, and when it does, it's going to be great. His tone sounds like, I'm not treating this week any differently than any other week. We're just going to keep grinding. As a fan, I got to admit, I was like, I want something to be different now. Like, right the fuck now. Like, I do not want to drive down to this game this weekend and watch the same bullshit I've been watching for the last, not just 6 games, but like 5 years. Like, I want something done now. I don't care if you have to play every single person on the line of scrimmage. I do not want to see another team run the ball down our friggin' throats. I don't want to see it. So, like, that's where I'm at. I'm not patient at all. And I don't want them to be patient, to be totally honest. Mark Zuck, we got 2 questions. I'll split these up for you guys. Evan, what's wrong with the offensive line? We know it's not filled with blue chippers, but is it the players or the coaching? Note there, heard that Anthony Bradford is the full-time player now. No more rotating. Christian Haynes.
That's really bad news for Christian Haynes. Wow. Like, he must be really bad. Like, imagine how bad you have to be to lose out to Anthony Bradford. Like, that's not good. I think at the guard position, it's just frankly a talent issue. Like Jeff said, you've got Laken Tomlinson, please, for the love of God. Nobody gaslight me into thinking he's good. And then you have Anthony Bradford. What more do I need to say? Right tackle, you're at right tackle 4, right? Obviously, you have some hope with Abe Lucas coming back, but that's 3 of 5 positions on the offensive line. Your 2 interior gaps getting very subpar talent, to be generous. So this is look, guys, we didn't want to pay Damian Lewis. We all advocated for a veteran stopgap to come in here that we, we're comfortable throwing millions at. Zeitler was one. He's playing very well, by the way. Very well. So don't know what to say. John Schneider thinks they're overpaid and overdrafted. So it is what it is.
Jeff, last one for you. What is wrong with the defensive line outside linebacker? Lots of high draft picks and big money players. If it's not the players, is it the coaching?
Again, I don't think the defensive line has been problematic this year until really last game. And Mike has said that pretty consistently. And then Mike's been honest. He said last week the edges were terrible. And I thought Hall and Mafe and Murphy, I thought all of them had pretty terrible games. So last week, I agree. They got pushed around by a more physical team. But for the most part, a lot of their issues in run defense have been at the second level. And linebacker play, there's a reason they traded out of desperation for Ernest Jones. There's a reason they got a little better once Rayshon Jenkins went out. And I don't think the defensive line, I think right now they've been mostly fine. But the thing with run defense is everything kind of needs to work together. And the problem with the Seahawks right now is I don't see them playing as one. I see them playing as 11 individual pieces, and it's not connecting. And that's where it's like, it does feel a little bit like the coaches are either asking them something they can't do, or they're just terrible at executing what they want. So, again, like you look at Arizona, they get no front 7 talent at all. And they're able to put together like a hardworking team. They play together as one. I don't know if that's Gannon, I don't know if that's coordinator, but I have some questions about McDonald's coaching staff. And we can talk about that another time, but there's a lot of guys who's never coached this scheme before. It's kind of an all-star staff of sorts where this guy's a great teacher, this guy's a great teacher, but I don't see what's called alignment. And I don't mean how they're lined up. I mean alignment on the staff. And what Baltimore did really well, and it was kind of the knock on McDonald when we were evaluating him, it's like Harbaugh's getting a job. So I don't know if like the same thing's being taught in the D-line. Like McDonald's still probably coaching the coaches on the scheme. And that's not a knock on McDonald. It was part of the growth pattern with him. But Dan Quinn, for example, if you look, like his linebacker coach is Ken Norton. They coached together in Seattle. Their DC is Joe Witt, who was with him in Dallas. Their D-line coach is an old Brian friend, Daryl Tapp. Daryl Tapp was with Dan Quinn in Seattle. So they're all coaching the same thing. They're on the same page. There's serious alignment there. I wonder with Seattle, with the rookie head coach, with the scheme that they have a defensive line coach from here, a linebacker coach from here, DB coach from here. Is there alignment in the building? Like, does McDonald need to bring guys in? And I thought it was kind of odd. They didn't bring in a veteran player from Baltimore. They didn't bring in a veteran coach from Baltimore. And I wonder if that's having an effect in terms of how they're transitioning the scheme.
Yeah, I have the same questions. And people forget that Pete Carroll after his first year fired Jeremy Bates, fired the offensive line coach. Like, it took a little bit to kind of get his crew together for what he wanted. And Mike McDonald was the last head coach, I think, to be hired and had the last choices of who to hire for his positions. He may approach it differently. We have gone through our Patreon questions. Thank you for that. Patreon.com/HawkBlogger. You can ask us questions every week as well. I will ask everyone to keep questions and comments to football as much as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you. And please and thank you. Evan's going to have to run here in a second. Let me show a couple. What's that?
One thing real quick.
Yes.
It's Rams related.
Yes.
Jared Verse, guys.
What about him?
He looks really good. He looks like
Mike McDonald talked about him today. They had him in for a visit. They know how good he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he was certainly on their list.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to call it
You're
out.
talking to two people who were obsessed with Jared Verse.
I did forget.
Jeff, is it fair to say that there's nobody that was as high on Jared Verse as me?
Yeah. You were talking about him and like you loved Verse and Murphy, and like the more me and you got very excited because we made the same comparison that Albert Breer came out with the Terrell Suggs comp. And you talk about physical and guys with an attitude and guys who like to talk. He's that. And that's why I thought Murphy would be gone, frankly. And Verse is the guy that me and Brian were like, please take this guy.
Yeah.
And funny enough, Evan's guy, Cooper DeJean, is lighting it up all of a sudden. But, yeah, I still think Murphy was a very good pick. But you watch the team and you see the lack of alphas, physical guys. A lot of the guys me and Brian have liked the last 2 years would have changed some of the total traffic right now. So
yeah, no doubt about it.
It's frustrating.
I want to get Evan's prediction before he goes, but a couple of super chat things. So Rick R, who's been a member for 5 months, says, I finally agree with Evan on something. Tootsie Rolls are elite. Rick, I love you, man. That's an awful take, so sorry, dude.
Phenomenal take.
We'll get to these other super chats after Evan departs. But Evan, talk to us about this Rams game. What is going to happen and what will be the final score?
I am very nervous about this game. Wow, coming to Seattle, Sean McVay has had our number. They are getting healthy. Matt Stafford is coming off the best game of his season, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, like I said earlier. Their offensive line is starting to play better, giving him time. Their run defense is improving. I'm worried about Seattle's ability to run the ball already. So I have a hard time. God, Puka looks so good too in his return last week. I think he had like 8 receptions on 9 targets. Seattle's defense has the potential to really struggle in this one. God, I want to be optimistic about Seattle, but I'm really struggling with this. And I hate losing to Sean McVay so much, but I think I'm going to pick the Rams on this, guys. It's going to be I think it's going to be 31-24 Seattle. I struggle to see Seattle effectively stopping the run, and I struggle to see them effectively running the football.
Did you just pick Seattle?
No, Rams.
Oh, okay. I heard that backwards.
I thought I heard the same thing. 31-24 Rams is what you meant to say.
You said Seattle.
Oh, no, opposite. Rams are winning this football game, and I'm happy to be told I'm wrong, but I'm struggling to be optimistic on this.
I hear you. Thank you, Evan, for making time tonight. It was good to talk to you. Jeff, we got a couple more things to get through, and then I'll let you go as well. So some super chats here. One, we've got Corey Coleman here says, I feel like this is the tipping point of the season, this game. The more the season has gone on, I agree more with Jeff. I hope the Seahawks finish strong. I think you agree with that. Ivan Paz has gifted 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. Thank you so much, Ivan. Really appreciate the generosity. And whoever gets one of these gifted memberships, pay it forward. Consider giving one as well. That's what our community is all about. Video Game Sports says, are either of the coordinators on the hot seat? If so, how long do they have to turn it around? What's your thought there, Jeff?
I listened to the Brock and Salk show on Monday, and I got some vibes that McDonald's not thrilled with Ryan Grubb. And I might be completely off on that. You talked it before. Pete, the first year he came in, most successful coach in Seahawks history, fired his OC after 1 year. They got their ass beaten, and they hired Tom Cable because they literally beat them in Oakland like 33-3. And there was comments about the way they're playing, the run game. I got the sense, and maybe I'm completely misreading this, but I got the sense he didn't seem thrilled about how the offense is being called. So I do wonder about him. Defensive coordinator, again, I talked about the alignment on the staff. It's hard to say how much is McDonald versus Aiden Dirty, and I don't know. I don't know if someone will come available, but Mike is the de facto defensive coordinator. So I don't know if Dirty would be on the hot seat. I feel like that's a guy they handpicked. They want some time with him, but I think if they play like this, anyone's job could be on the hot seat if this trend continues the next 9 games. But I don't know. My ears perked up with the Ryan Grubb comment. Some of the things I heard on Monday.
I think that's fair. I think anyone that's expecting that's expecting more than the number 1 passing offense in football with this offensive line. I think expectations. I would be if it was the other way around. If Ryan Grubb was the head coach and Mike McDonald was the defensive coordinator, I think there'd be a way stronger case to be made about you got a lot of talent on defense. Like, why is that unit one of the worst in football right now? Like, you can't say the Seahawks offense. I mean, Seahawks offense is still essentially like a top 10, top 12 group overall, even with their problems. And like that offensive line, it feels very clear to me that they've got a guard issue. They've got to improve there. They could be a very different offense just with that change. And so like, I get it. I don't even disagree that Mike McDonald might feel differently, but for me, it's like, do I think a coach is really going to change that? No, you can put any friggin' coach there, and I think that offensive line is massively flawed. All right, Bill Anderson says it's all about lack of talent to run Mike McDonald's type of defense. We'll see. Alan Bond, Nova Scotia Seahawker, been a member for 7 months, says Brian Pagliacci pizzas on me Sunday. Go Hawks. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. I actually have had Pagliacci tonight. A little pepperoni, hot honey on there. It was fantastic. Are you a hot honey guy? You ever do hot honey?
I do. I like it.
I like hot honey. So Jeff, let's talk about this game. So hear me out. I think people are way too high on the Rams. I think they've gone way over their skis.
So I was about to say that there is a lot of revisionist history going on right now in our chat. Not our chat. Did they watch the Rams before last week? Did anyone watch them? There's a lot of overcorrecting to what they just saw.
Yeah, it's a huge recency bias. It is understandable that Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp come back. They play their best game. They beat their like a very good Vikings team. All that I buy. But I went over this morning as well, and I'll just restate it for people that didn't hear. The Vikings were coming off playing the Lions, a massive divisional game. There's a whole Lions effect thing, which I don't actually buy as much, but it was a divisional game that was hard fought to the end. It was emotionally and physically draining. Then they have to travel across the country to LA for a Thursday night game on no rest, no game planning, really prep, no practice between there, as we know how that works. And they still were like, they scored 2 touchdowns, 70-yard drive, the first 2 possessions. And then the coach was stupid enough to not kneel at halftime, and they lose their left tackle for the whole second half. And even with all of that, they still had the ball with a chance to tie at the end of the game. So, yes, the Rams had their best game. Was that like a dominant, we are back performance? No. And so I don't think the Rams are some great team. So that's one. I also think none of that matters. Like, until the Seahawks show something that they haven't shown for the last 6 weeks, I'm going to be picking against them every friggin' time. I'm going to be picking the Rams to win this game. I think the Rams win this game comfortably. 30-20 is what I'll go with. I think the Rams defense is not good. I think they have a good pass rush, but I don't think they have good run defenders. I think they're terrible at defending the running back as a receiver. They're 32nd in the NFL DVOA against running backs and tight ends. Maybe A.J. Barner has a bigger game. Whatever. I don't care what the offense does. Maybe DK Metcalf comes. I don't care what the offense does. Until the defense shows a backbone, none of it matters. So that's where I'm at. And I'm not happy to be there. I'm not like beating my chest about it, but this is like, you got to show me at this point.
Yeah, both things are true. The Rams were 1-4, and they barely beat the Raiders, who had the quarterback injury. And sure, Puka Nacua makes a big difference. He looked sensational last week, and it unlocked the whole offense. Stafford looked excellent. Stafford before last week was having the worst statistical season of his career. However, I do expect the offense with the Rams to really get going. With all their players healthy, their offensive line's going to get healthier. The run game's pretty good. I think they're trending upwards, and I think that's legitimate. But defensively, I see a lot of people like the Rams draft all these studs and the Seahawks draft. The Rams were the 31 DVOA defense, I think, up until 2 weeks ago. Their secondary has been awful. Their linebackers are even worse, and Garrett Verse has flashed some plays, but their run defense before last week, I think there's a lot of revisionist history in like this talk that like Byron Murphy's a bust and all this stuff. Like, we saw the video of the Rams talking about Byron Murphy. They had Murphy way ahead of Jared Verse.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that he's a bust is outrageous. He had a bad game. He was fantastic against Atlanta. And I thought he was pretty good in the first 2 games. Like, I don't know what people are talking about. So the Rams have been a very flawed defense, have not played well defensively. Their offensive line has been pretty brutal with injuries. And then you combine them with receivers being out, and you see why. But, yeah, the Seahawks lost to the freaking Giants. And the Giants have been atrocious since they played everyone else. And they pushed around the Seahawks. So we're at the level where, like, any game is capable of unraveling. And Sean McVay, again, this is another annoying situation where they have 10 days to prepare. They're healthier. They're fresher. It's a big advantage to the Rams. And I think even they played pretty even straight up. I think the Rams right now are a better team than Seattle, where Seattle's flailing on defense. Their offensive line's awful. And so I'm with you. Until we see the Seahawks look competent in run defense, and again, there's nothing more humiliating than bad run defense. I said last week after the game, I'd rather them have 10 guys in the box than throw for 400 yards over our head. And it still wouldn't feel as bad as the way they've lost the last few weeks on run defense. So until the Seahawks can do that, and it's unfortunate because this was a game I was super excited about when McDonald got hired, to see like that mind go against that mind.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them clearly have a lot of respect for each other, but it's just the Seahawks are at a level right now where they're not even competent on defense.
Yeah, and Mike McDonald did admit that this week, that there's parts of the parts of the scheme, parts of the playbook that he cannot access at this point because the team's not been able to graduate to that point. So, I mean, that's not great. And, my mind goes to the players, but Mike Macdonald, one of the things that he is known for is the system he uses to teach his defense and simplify things and have people pick it up. And so it's coaching as well, so it's very disappointing and disheartening. I still believe, despite all this, I believe in the talent and I believe in the coaching. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, I do believe in it. But I think it would be, at this point, it is just silly to expect anything to be different when you're going against a competent offensive coach, a very good offensive coach, a good running back, a good run blocking offensive line, good receivers. Why would this be the team where they all of a sudden play well? The only thing that maybe works in their favor, is the Rams don't have a lot of fans. They're not going to travel well. They're not going to fill up the stadium. It's not a primetime game that's going to get a lot of people traveling to come see this. So maybe they'll get a little bit more of a home field advantage than they've had the last few games, but that's stretching it, So we'll see. And people are going to come back, and if the Seahawks win, I'll be thrilled. I'll be happy to be wrong. I will, people can dunk on us all they want. That's fine. But I don't think either you or I take a lot of pleasure in just saying something so that people feel good about it. What's the point? Let's at least give our honest takes and we'll go from there. One more super chat from Taker here says, did you guys hear Daniel Jeremiah say Poona Ford is shutting down the run for Harbaugh down in LA on Brock and Salk? Did you hear this, Jeff?
I didn't hear him today, but I've seen a lot of clips. Apparently he's had a really good year in the same defense the Seahawks are running, or a different version of it. But yeah, there's been some guys Seattle's let go where they just couldn't figure out how to use, and they've done well elsewhere. And it's disheartening for sure, but I'm not sitting here being like, why don't we have Poona Ford?
He was barely, the Bills didn't even have him active for most games when he was on that roster.
Yeah, it's if we're going to bemoan that, it's that's missing the mark.
Yeah. I mean, I do think nose tackle is a position that John Schneider did not address properly. And it feels to me like there was options for what to do there, but that's just one of a number of second guessings that we can do at this point. All right. Anything I missed, Jeff, before we wrap for the night?
For the most part, not really. The Seahawks right now, the only way they're positioned to win is when the offense Chino can carry the offense. And I think this is a game where I think that's possible. It'll be really nice to not watch Aaron Donald play on the other side of the field. Mm-hmm. I think this is a game where I think Gino's had a lot of success against them. I think the Ernest Jones revenge game will be pretty interesting angle. But right now, I don't know if it matters the way the Seahawks are playing defensively. Ernest Jones at 15 tackles and you didn't notice anything. So I don't think it's out of line that they could win this game. But again, I'm looking at bigger picture things than them just beating the Rams. I want to see that they could stop the bleeding.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you, man. That's where I'm at. It sucks to be 4-4 and kind of somewhat tied for a division lead and not be looking forward to this game.
It's awful.
My expectations have not been that high. I was not one of the people in our preseason that was saying they're going to get to the NFC Championship. I was just 10 wins, man. And I'm really frustrated about the defense. Just really, really frustrated. I don't want to see it anymore.
It's awful. It's horrible.
I don't want to see it. Yeah. So it would be nice if there's something that shows that there's people in that room that care about it and are as pissed off about it as we are, and that shows up in some way. I don't need it to be performative. I don't need someone to just be throwing a clipboard for the sake of doing it. But can we just get this? Mike Macdonald talks about shocking effort. When's the last time you saw shocking effort, in the run game? So
not in the run game. I've seen some things this year, but
yes. Yes.
Not often enough. Not often enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who tuned in. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. I'd appreciate it. Tune in tomorrow morning for Hawk Blogger Mornings. I will be back to cover things there. And then Friday, we will have Mike Sando and Dave Bowling. The duo will be back. We'll talk on Friday. Should be fun. Looking forward to that. And then Jeff and I will be back Saturday morning for Seahawks Saturday. So we'll see you all then. Until then, I'm Brian Nemhauser at Hawk Blogger on Twitter and Instagram. Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons. This has been episode 338 of Real Hawk Talk. Take care. Hey folks, this is Brian Nemhauser. Thanks for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Want you to know that Real Hawk Talk is available on all major podcast platforms. Go ahead and subscribe. Have all podcasts delivered directly to your phone after each and every show. And then go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. Helps us out, gets more people to the show. Then, if you haven't already done it, go to patreon.com/hawkblogger and subscribe for just $5 a month. Gets you immediate access to our Slack channel. Join hundreds of folks in that community to talk Seahawks about wins, losses, and all things in between. Not to mention, become eligible to win giveaways for Seahawks tickets and get to ask questions of the Real Hawk Talk crew every week on the show. Finally, if you haven't gone to hawkblogger.com recently, head on over. Tail the Tape morning after articles are there every week. Hoping to see you there. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show. Go Hawks.